Hi everyone, welcome to the YouTube channel of Connecting Minds. The last video in this channel got an overwhelming response and I'm very happy and motivated to make the second video as episode 2 for this channel. In this video we will discuss something which is not trending at the moment but something which is very important to be understood from a common man's perspective. Yes, why do diesel petrol prices keep increasing in our country? Before we find out the actual reasons why, let's start extracting from the base. Well, my intention in this video is to make things extremely clear with maximum understanding with minimal numbers. Let's take a scenario where you're going to a petrol pump and you're asking the lady to fill in petrol or diesel for rupees 2000. Many of you, including myself, would not bother to find out what is the maximum fuel capacity of the car and how many liters of petrol or diesel would you actually get on paying rupees 2000. The number of liters is dependent on the rupee per litre cost of the fuel. More the rupee per litre cost of petrol or diesel, less would be the number of liters that you would get into your car. And less the rupee per litre cost of petrol or diesel, more would be the number of liters that you would get into your car. So this concept of rupee per litre cost of fuel is the fulcrum around which my discussion is based. Here I've drawn a comparison between fuel prices just before lockdown, sometime during the end of March 2020, and after lockdown as on 1st July 2020. The price of petrol per litre was 75.14 rupees and that of diesel was 67.96 rupees per litre. After lockdown, the price of petrol rose to 80.43 rupees per litre and that of diesel to 80.53 rupees per litre. Now, if you look closely to the figures after lockdown, you'll be amazed to find out that the rupee per litre cost of diesel has surpassed the rupee per litre cost of petrol. Now, this is quite shocking for the fact that it's happening for the very first time in the history of our country. And as I speak, in Delhi, the fuel prices, which is taken to be the benchmark for the entire country, the rupee per litre cost of diesel is actually higher than the rupee per litre cost of petrol. Now, this is quite unbelievable. So why was there a jump from 75-67 rupees per litre to almost 80 plus rupees per litre of petrol and diesel? To understand this, we must be aware of the fact that there are many steps involved in reaching the final product of petrol and diesel. It starts from the extraction of bent crude oil, importing it into India, processing, refining, storage, transportation by the oil marketing companies, giving it to the petrol pumps before it finally comes into our tanks. Well, talking about crude oil, all of us are aware of the fact that the value of crude oil has been showing a diminishing trend right from the time the pandemic broke out in China. Crude oil is measured in terms of dollars per barrel. One barrel is approximately 159 liters of fuel. So on one side you have the reduced cost of raw material, which is bent crude oil, but on the other side you have the ever increasing price of the finished product in terms of petrol and diesel. Why so? To simplify the understanding, let's see what the oil marketing companies are doing. What are OMCs or oil marketing companies? Well, these are companies which import the oil, they refine, they process, they store, and they finally transport it as petrol and diesel. You have public OMCs like HPCL, BPCL, and the Indian Oil Corporation or the IOC, and you have more private players like Reliance, SR, and Shell. It was reported in quarter 4 of the financial year 2019-20 that these OMCs collectively made an inventory loss of 20,000 crore rupees worth of oil. Now, there can be many factors contributing to this heavy cost. It could be labor costs, manufacturing costs, refining or processing costs. So these OMCs have now two options. Either they can bear the brunt of this increased storage cost or they can pass the burden on to the consumers. Well, of course, they chose the second option and they did pass on the burden to the consumers. To understand this tax trick, let's take the help of a mind map. On the right side, you can find the final price of petrol per litre as on 1st July 2020, which is 80.43. And on the left side, you can find the breakup for this 80.43 rupees per litre. 28.56 rupees per litre is the cost of fuel, or that is petrol, before taxes. And that comprises of crude oil transport, refining, processing, adding a small percentage of margin by the OMCs and commission as revenue for petrol pumps. Once it is open to the government for levying taxes, the central government levies something known as excise duty on the manufacture or production of crude oil into petrol and diesel. And the state government levies something known as VAT or value added tax for the interstate movement of petrol and diesel. The total tax of 51.87 rupees per litre accounts for around 63-64% of the final price of petrol, which is 80.43 as on 1st July 2020. Will you not question when you're buying a product and you find out the tax imposed on the product is 65% of the base price? Well, that's happening for petrol and diesel. Well, there's no doubt that the taxes levied on petrol and diesel is a major source of revenue for the government. It is claimed that in the last 4.5 years, the government could collect almost 11 lakh crore worth of tax revenues only by way of imposing excise duty on petrol and diesel. If you see this graph, you'll find out that India is in the front line when it comes to imposing a heavy percentage of tax on the base price, which is currently 69%. So why is the government desperately trying to increase the taxes on diesel and petrol? Let's find out the reasons why. Now, there can be multiple reasons for this action by the government. The main reason is the increasing physical deficit, which is when your expenditure is high and your income is less. The economy is going through a slowdown because of the COVID-19 pandemic, and for the government to announce stimulus packages, they need money pumping in from one corner in the form of tax revenues. The second reason could be the fact that the rupee per dollar rate is continuously diminishing. 87% of the oil produced in the country comes from the Gulf and other major countries. And when your rupee per dollar rate is continuously decreasing, your imports become much costlier and much more expensive. Experts state that by the time the virus does its job and leaves the country, your rupee per dollar rate can go up to 80 rupees, which is quite possible. Now, India is not able to extract the best quality of bent crude oil, and the cost of exploration mining of the oil becomes much more expensive and costly, and that is why they're heavily dependent on imports. Well, the government also plans to disinvest or privatize BPCL, which would earn them around 60,000 crores of rupees. And again, because of the COVID-19 situation, this privatization has got delayed, and they are in dire need to cash in revenue in the form of taxes. So what are the consequences of a hike in petrol diesel prices? It may lead to inflation, it may lead to a frozen transportation logistics sector because they are heavily dependent on diesel. The economy is on a downturn, rupee is falling down, business houses are being shut, people are losing jobs. If you happen to be on LinkedIn, you'll come across at least 5 to 6 persons describing how they lost their jobs and how they want people to look at their resumes. So a further hike in petrol diesel prices would really aggravate the situation. So I did discuss about VAT and excise duty as the two taxes imposed by the government on petrol and diesel. But what about GST? Why is the government not levying GST on petrol and diesel? The fact is that if GST is levied on fuel, then the tax collection of the government will fall down to a mighty grade, and the state governments may not even make so much of revenue to cover their costs. Currently, for petrol, the tax percentage on the final price is 64-65%. Now that will come down to around 40% if GST is introduced on petrol. So this would not be a welcome step by the government. I hope I was able to make things clear through this video. I really enjoyed shooting the video and doing research on this particular topic. If you like the video, please do show your support to us by hitting the like button. If you want to become a member of this channel and receive notifications on a weekly basis as and when we upload videos, please do hit the subscribe button. I've also shared the link for episode 1 on this channel, which is on the India-China standoff. And finally, I would love suggestions coming in for this particular video by way of comments. So I'll see you guys next week. Stay safe and have a great day.